Hello my friends, it's the Game Boy Geek here. Today we're going to be flying all around Europe as spies, and we're going to be trying to eavesdrop by listening to people on tape. We're also going to be watching them with binoculars, trying to complete missions. Today we're going to learn how to play Covert. This is a rules school where I will give you a 1-minute overview, then I'm going to teach you how to set up the game, and then play it rule for rule so that you don't have to open the rule book. Maybe just use it as a guideline or reference, but use this video for most of learning the game. So let's get going. In Covert, you're trying to finish secret missions by getting certain things like shoes and credit cards. Sometimes you're going to be trying to break codes by manipulating the code on the door and being able to get certain aspects to help you complete missions later. You'll be manipulating codes by moving adjacent numbers. You'll be adding dice to try to break codes to get things like the tape machine. You'll be placing dice to be able to take actions later, but they gotta be adjacent to where dice already are. You'll be moving agents to the right cities to complete missions. You'll be picking up intel from other players, which will allow you to get more information. You'll be using your character's special ability throughout the game. You'll be using special tokens to do different things like manipulate dice and break rules of the games, and you'll be using these agency cards to fly to certain regions, use to complete missions, or even use for a special ability for multi-use cards. Each player is going to pick a color. They're going to take all the dice, the reroll tokens, the 3 spies, the cubes, and their player shield for that color and place it in front of them. If you're playing with only 2 players, you'll take the cubes of the 2 colors not being played and you'll keep them out. Everything else can go into the box. Next, you'll separate out these classified cards. You can either randomly give one to each player, or you can let the players choose. This essentially gives them a special ability throughout the game. Next, each player will take this agency deck with the briefcase on it, and one at a time will flip 3 cards. Each city, they will place one of their spies. In this case, the red player will place one right into Dublin. They'll do this for the other 2 characters, then pass this deck to the other players, and each of those players will do that as well. So everyone has 3 spies on the board at the beginning of the game. So this is how the board might look like with the spies at the beginning of a game of 4 players. Now if you're playing with only 2 players, like red and green at this point, you would take 12 more of these agency cards, and for each card you'd alternate between the other 2 colors, putting 1 cube in the city that you draw for each of those colors. So at the end of this setup, the 2 players will have 3 spies like normal, but the other 2 colors not being played will each have 6 cubes out on the board. Next, you take all those city agency cards that you would use to set up the board, you would shuffle them back into the deck again, and then each player would secretly get 2 of these that they would hold in their hand. Next, you'd take those agency cards and deal 1 to each of these regions down below, and then put the rest of the deck near there. Each player behind their shield will get 3 secret mission cards that have this gun and compass on it and says confidential. They will flip them up so they can see those missions secretly behind their screen. They have points in the upper left and missions in the middle. From these 3 cards, they will keep 2 of them. They'll take 1 of them and they will put it face down on the bottom of the mission deck, so they only have 2 missions to start the game. And after each person selects their mission cards, 3 of them will be dealt face up on the side of the board, and a draw deck will be put there as well. Each player will then receive 2 code cards. They look like this on one side, they all have 2 points, but when you flip them over it looks like codes. Each player is going to get 2 of them secretly behind their shield, code side up. Now the deck of those code cards, you'll split into 2 now, and you'll make them basically in half, and you'll place them near the code section of the board. You'll also take these code numbers and you'll place 1 randomly in each of the spots at the beginning of the game. You'll then put the player order tokens near the board. You'll only need 1 of these for each player. So in this case, if we're playing with 2 players, you can take the 3 and 4 players out and put back in the box. Next, you'll take all the special operation tokens and you'll place them in the bag, and you'll leave the bag near the board. Now to determine the first player order, people roll their dice, and whoever has the most number of the single value. So in this case, I have 2 dice that are 4s, 2 that 6s, so I have a value of 2. Whoever has the most single value goes first. If it's tied, it's the total number of the dice added together. Or alternatively, whoever says I am a super secret super spy, and the best Sean Connery voice goes first. Each round goes through 3 phases: roll and place dice, break codes, dice resolution. We're going to go through the roll and place dice now. Now all the rules I'm going to tell you are the default rules, although there are some abilities and tokens that can break these rules that I might go over later. Now when you place dice, you start with that start player, and you're always going to place 1 die, and then it will go clockwise around the table. When you place a die, you can choose a few different spots. One is you can choose any one of these 4 different action spots. If you're the first person to place in that spot, you can place your die onto any of them as long as the number on your die matches up with the number. This is a number 4. I'm going to put my number 4 there. Now each space can only have 1 die in it. Now if anybody else, including me or my opponents, want to place here, they have to place adjacent. So they would either have to place a 3 or a 5. Now the next person there would have to place a 2 or a 5. And that's how you can put dice in these different action spots. I'll tell you what these do later, but this is just placing dice. Another place a die can be placed is in the code section. I'll go over what that does later. You can always place a die of any value in the special operations, and when you do so, you go into this bag and you secretly pull out one of these tokens, which will give you a special ability over the game. I'll go over those later. Now when it's your turn, if you have no dice to place, you can take the lowest turn order marker. But even if you have dice to place, you can decide for the rest of the round not to place any and then take the lowest. So this is sort of like turning in dice early to try to be able to go first over the next 2 phases of the round. And this dice placement phase continues until the last of the tokens have been taken for turn order. Now the next phase is break codes. This will go in turn order from the tokens that you had just taken. Now secretly, let's say I have this code here that I am trying to get completed, 615. Now when it's your turn to go here, you can move and swap any 2 adjacent ones, meaning I could swap this 5 with the 6. I could swap this 2 with the 6. Anywhere up, down, left, right, you cannot do it diagonal. These also wrap. I could swap this 5 with this 6 or this 3 with this 2. But when looking at the code, they do not wrap. I couldn't go 6, 5, 6 here, but they do wrap for the use of swapping tiles. Now let's do this. I need 615, so you get to, by default, swap any 2 tiles that are adjacent. So I'm going to swap this 4 with the 1. I then can use a die that I placed here as a number. So I place this here, 615, 615. This is completed. This would have been secret behind my shield. It would then get flipped over and be placed in front of my shield so everyone knows what I have access to. This will be worth 2 points at the end, but we'll show you what you do with these later. Once that's done, I immediately remove this die for other people, and then everyone else in turn order would be able to do the same type of thing. Now you don't have to be able to collect something in order to change it, because you may be changing it for future turns. After everyone has finished their code breaking phase, we then go to dice resolution phase, and once again it goes in token player order. By default, each player will take 1 die off of where they are and activate that spot, and you'll see the 4 different action spots here. Let's talk about what these do. So let's say it's green's turn. They're going to activate their die here. This is movement. They can actually take as many die as they want to off here. It says any number of die. For each die taken, you can move each of your agents up to 1 space. So if I take 1 of this now, I can move all 3 of my green agents up to 1 space. If I took 2 dice at once, I can move each agent up to 2 spaces. So let's say this green agent wanted to move 2 cities, 1, 2. First of all, anytime you leave a city, you place a cube there as intel or intelligence that other people will be picking up, just like this. If you've picked this up, you pick up, anytime you enter a city, you pick up any cubes of a color that are not your own and place them in front of you. Now, if you don't have any cubes left, you don't place any. Now, anytime you get 2 intel cubes of the same player, wherever that person was in that picked up that last cube, they have to spend these 2 cubes, either give them back to the player, or if it's a 2-player game and this player's not there, they get removed from the game. And since they're in this region, they would take that color or symbol's agency card right there. So in this case, they could either take this, or they could take 1 random agency card off the top. Let's just say they take this one, they would put it behind their shield, and this would get replaced. Now again, if I had taken both of these, I could move every agent up to 2. In this case, I had just moved 1. Also, if I just take 1 die, I can move all agents up to 1 and then later activate this one and move them all up to another one. It's flexible in that way. And once you resolved your die, the next player in turn order would do theirs. Let's say they do this one. This one is all about the agency cards. So if someone activates this with 1 die, They could take one card from any of the agent's areas. So we have a guy in the green, gray, and purple. There's also symbols there. They could take the card on green, gray, or purple, any one of those three. Now, if they activated 2 dice at the same time from that spot, you could take any one face-up card or the blind card off the top, and then it gets replaced. So you're probably wondering what those agency cards do. Well, they help you complete missions. So let's go here. If you activate a die here, you can complete 1 mission. Now again, you're going in turn order here, but I'm just showing you the action of this one is you select 1 die and you can complete 1 mission. Now missions can be done in different ways. Some of them need different things. For example, this one has 1 agent in each of these 2 cities and you need a watch. Where this one you need the credit card, you need shoes, and you need to be able to discard any one agency card that you might have in your hand. Now other missions might actually require you just to have somebody in a city and somebody in a different region and then maybe something else. Now they're always different points as well depending on the cards. Now let's say we're trying to do this. Now earlier you saw that we completed a code. Now let's say earlier we actually completed this one. This one was shoes. If we had completed this one, it would have went face up on the other side of my shield. This is worth 2 points at the end of the game if we don't use it. But let's say we had completed both the shoe and the credit card code, and these were on the other side of my shield, and everyone could see that those are worth 2 points. I could cash these in and discard them, losing these 2 points each for the cards, but I have those too. So I could have discarded those from the front of my shield. I would have lost 4 points for those, and then I would have discarded any one agency card like this and discarded it. That would have done this complete mission, and I would have gotten 12 points. I would put this out in front of my shield so everyone can see that I've completed that. But maybe I didn't have those codes cracked. I had this agency card that I could use to discard for the any one, and then maybe I had 2 other agency cards. Maybe I had the shoes, and I had the credit card, and these logos, these little things here will show you the iconography there. So I could have discarded all 3 of those agency cards to get that done, and it would have gotten me more points because I wouldn't have lost the 2 points for the code cards that I would have had to discard for that. Now some mission cards actually have logos on the bottom of them. So if you have completed these missions, for the rest of the game, you for free can use these icons to finish other missions. This is a region and this is a gun. So for the rest of the game, you don't have to discard these. These are basically free items that you can use towards other missions, sort of like a little engine building there. And when you activate this last spot here, essentially you take a face up or face down mission card. And when you take one of these, you'll put it behind your shield, making sure you don't have more than 3 missions. If you do, you discard down to 3, and then this will fill up. And once the last action is done, then we would start a whole new round. Again, the person who had last in turn order in the round previous will become the first player to roll a dice and place dice. Now I want to recap those agency cards that you've been seeing me use through the course of this video. Now these cards, first of all, you can only have a maximum of 7 of them in your hand at one time. If you were to pick up more than 7, you just simply discard down to 7. Now these cards have multi-uses. They have 3 in fact. The first one is you can use them to complete a mission. Now earlier we saw us do that. In this case, this would be a watch. That's a watch icon, which goes with the watch artwork on this. And you saw me earlier use these cards for completing missions. Now, it can also be used for flying someone to a city. During the dice resolution phase or the dice placement phase, you can play this card on your turn and move any of your agents to the city listed here. Now there's also a region here. This does nothing other than to tell you that that's the region that this player could use this card to fly one of his agents to. So if you're looking for a region specific, you know what it is. The third thing you can use for this card is a special ability. Again, you can discard this card to use the special ability specifically when this special ability allows you to. These are the same abilities that you'll find on the tokens in this bag. And remember, you get these from going to the special operations point on the board. So let's look at these special abilities and show you what they do. And those are the same ones that you'll see on these agency cards. Now these are typically used by using these tokens or discarding the agency cards with those special abilities. You'd use them at specific times and discard those as they come out. Now the first 3 are dice. So this one is you can add 1 to your dice value. You can minus 1 to your dice value. Of course, when you're placing dice, you might need to do that to be adjacent to a die. Here is you place 2 of them at the same time. This one is you can get 3 points of movement. Here you can draw 3 mission or agency cards and keep 1 and put the rest in the bottom of the deck. This one is you can do 2 movements instead of 1 during the code breaking phase. This one is you can perform 1 action before in the normal turn order, or you can go first when you're doing the code breaking. This one is in red because it's in reaction. When somebody discards an agency card, you can discard this token or a card that has this to gain that card. Now also you have one of these tokens that were given at the beginning of the game. It's a one-time use. You discard this out of the game and you can re-roll any dice that you haven't yet placed, and you can use those as they are. Now this continues until somebody completes 6 missions. At the end of the round, the game will end, but everyone has one more chance to complete missions, not by using actions, but by using maybe special abilities, tokens, and or agency cards to do so. At the end, you add up the points of all your missions, and you add up any of the points of the unused code cards that you broke. Whoever has the most is the winner. If it's tied, whoever has the most missions completed is the winner. If it's still tied, whoever has the single highest number is the winner. Well, I hope that helped you just get set up in this game, get rule for rule, learn how to play it, and then get going with your first game. And you can come back to this later on subsequent plays and just refresh there a little bit. If you have any questions, go ahead and drop them as a comment in this video, and we will try to get back to them as soon as possible.